Alrighty. Thank you everyone for attending this event today. We have two amazing guest speakers from the research group here to let you know what they have for you today. Without further ado, let's begin.
Thank you, Brianna. Welcome everyone. My name is Alyssa Nguyen, and I am the Director of Research and Evaluation for the Research and Planning Group for California Community Colleges. And I am joined here by my co-presenter, Dr. Darla Cooper, who is our Executive Director for the RP group. So we're so happy to be here to share with you findings from our multi-year research focused on transfer success in the California Community College system. So the specific focus of the research inquires about when students make significant progress toward a transfer goal, why they don't make it through the transfer gate to university, and what students across the state say about what impacts their transfer progress and how to strengthen their transfer success. So today we'll be sharing with you all what we learned from those student perspectives from the research conducted, including results from a large-scale survey we deployed last year, and in-depth interviews with current and exited community colleges who are close to the transfer gate but have yet not made it to the university. So a little bit about the organization. So we are a hybrid organization with roots as a membership-based organization. So we represent the institutional research planning and effectiveness professionals in the California Community College system. And then we also provide fee-for-services in the area of research, evaluation, planning, professional development, and technical assistance that is designed and conducted by California Community College practitioners with a focus to strengthen the ability of the California Community Colleges to discover and undertake high quality research focused on evidence-based decision-making, institutional effectiveness, and success for all students. So this specific research was generously funded by the College Futures Foundation, who not only funded the work, but they were partners and connectors helping to support the research along the way. Our focus today is going to be to share with you all the new framework based on the research for building students' transfer capacity with a focus on students who were close to their transfer goal. We'll be sharing with you the 4 factors that emerged from the research that we found impacted students' university readiness, and also providing you all with a preview of how different focal student groups experience the transfer journey and what specific actions we may take to support these students with their transfer journey. We'll also take a look at considerations as you all look at your own advocacy efforts to support transfer students at your local research utilizing this research. So we're going to kick off with an overview of the Through the Gate transfer study research highlights. And here's a copy of the front page of the research brief that was recently published back in May. So the study itself aims to identify individuals who have completed most or all of their transfer requirements, but had not yet made it through what we call through the gate to university. We also engaged in this research to help determine and identify strategies for increasing transfer to help enhance student social and economic mobility with a specific focus on underrepresented student populations. The approach we took to conduct and carry out this research project was a multi-stage, multi-year approach. So in the first year of the work, we looked at mapping out what that transfer landscape looked like based on student transcript information across the state. So we had a specific focus on trying to understand and focus in on and know who these students were who met all or most of their transfer requirements but had not yet transferred. In the second year and stage of the report, we wanted to dig deeper to understand what specific factors impacted these students' journeys and how policy and practice might help us propel them through the gate. So numbers could only tell us so much from the first stage. And so in the second phase, what we did was we conducted a mixed methods research approach where we surveyed students across a sample of community colleges and then followed up on those findings with interviews with students. In the final stage and the stage that we are currently in, we are now moving from collecting data and information to understand what that transfer landscape looks like to moving into action. So in this year, we're focused on engaging with key leaders across the state to help us identify strategic opportunities to strengthen transfer success based on the findings from the first two phases of our work. So what did we learn from the first stage of the work? So in the first stage of the work, we looked at over 800,000 student records of students who were enrolled in our system between 2010 and 2015, with their transfer outcomes and achievements tracked through spring of 2016. From that, what we found was that over a third of all of those students were what we call near or at the gate. So in other words, over a third of the students who were enrolled during that time period had met most or all of their transfer requirements, but had not yet transferred. What we also learned was that for the students who were near the gate, those students who had earned at least 60 transferable units with a 2-point GPA, but was missing their transfer level math and English, that math was the biggest barrier for those specific students. So of the students who were near the gate, 92% of those students were missing their transfer level math course. What we also learned was that time is the enemy for students who were at or near the gate. So for students who had met most or all of their transfer requirements, if they didn't transfer within 1 year of meeting those milestones, they were less likely to transfer at all. And then one of the surprising and exciting findings from this first stage of the work was that we found that of all of the racial student groups who were at or near the gate or who were just in the transfer pipeline in our system, not surprisingly, African American Black students were the least likely of all groups to make it near or at the gate, or in other words, met most or all of their transfer requirements during this time. But the surprising finding and the exciting finding that was found was that once African American and Black students made it near or at the gate, of all of the racial groups, they were the most likely to transfer. So that was a pretty exciting finding in terms of when we think about some of the equity strategies and equity efforts that are happening across the state, where we're finding that in general, our African American and Black students are less likely to achieve certain completion milestones and outcomes. But for this specific phase of our work, it was pretty exciting to see that once African American and Black students met that specific milestone of completing most or all of their transfer requirements, they were the most likely to transfer of all of the groups. And then finally, One of the other findings from this first stage of the work was that Latino students were more likely than the other groups to be at or near the gate than to have transferred. So as mentioned, numbers can only tell us so much about what the experiences are for students who are on a transfer path. So in the second stage and phase of the work, we tried to dig deeper by talking directly to students. So what we learned from surveying over 800 students and talking to them across 31 California community colleges was that students are really motivated to transfer for a better life for themselves and their family. So the process of transfer and the act of transferring for these students wasn't the end goal for these students, but a means to a goal of receiving and completing a bachelor's degree so that they can gain social and economic mobility. What we also learned was that students really need a more holistic and integrated approach to ensure their progress toward that educational goal of a bachelor's degree. And that piecemealing the support and the information is a barrier to students towards successful transfer. And then the final key takeaway from this work was that community colleges cannot do this alone, that intersegmental collaboration and university involvement is critical for building students' capacity for transfer. So now I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Cooper, who will share more about what we learned in talking to these students and the factors that emerged.
Thank you, Alyssa, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to walk you through this framework, this transfer capacity building framework, go through each of the factors. And as I do that, I'm going to kind of go through the definition. I'm going to share a quote from one of the students in our interviews. And then this is where we want to get you involved. We want to hear from you. And so for each factor, we have a question for you. And you can either use the chat or if you can raise your hand and we can unmute you so that we can hear from you. Next slide, please. So the first factor was university affordability. And this was the one factor that did not, that came up number one for everyone, regardless of who you are, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless. It was the number one factor influencing or impacting students' ability to transfer. And what it really comes down to, what we found from these students is that they didn't know, they didn't have confidence in whether they could afford to go to the university. They didn't have the information about, what does it really cost to go to the university and what kind of aid is available? What are the different ways to pay for it? And not being able to access that information, it kind of put the brakes on transferring for a number of students. So we need to do a better job of making sure that students understand as early as possible. Once they've decided on transfer as their goal, we need to start giving them information about what is it going to cost, not just to go to the community college, but to get your bachelor's degree. We need to be helping students understand the full cost of the bachelor's degree, not just what it costs to get to transfer. So a quote here from a student: "One really big thing that's scaring me is the money. I mean, it's almost unimaginable that I have to spend the amount that one would pay for a very big house in California on education." So let's go to the next slide and let's hear from you. So how are you learning about what has helped you understand what it's going to cost you to go to the university? And please feel free to, again, raise your hand or enter your thoughts in the chat. But we want to know what's been helpful. And then we got the flip side of that. We want to know what your thinking is in terms of what colleges and universities, because that, back to Alyssa's point, it's going to take both. It's not completely on the college the community college to help with transfer. The two entities have to work together. So again, what's been helpful for you? And if nothing's been helpful, you can put that in the chat. If you want to say, I don't have any idea what it's going to cost me to go to the university, I don't know how to get that information, you could put that in there as well. So just waiting for that first brave soul to get us going in the chat. California Promise, yes. How has that helped you, Brianna?
Well, for me, actually, I didn't know I was a part of the cohort, but it was actually the first cohort at my college of Promise program students that I was a part of. And so it just kind of took like a burden off of me with like, I could get my tuition paid for, my textbooks were free. And I also got a sum of money in my bank account, and that really helped me because I'm not a student living at home. I pay rent. And so I think that there's a lot of students like myself that don't have the like traditional narrative of being a community college student where you live at home and you just go to the nearest community college. I think a lot of students like myself want to go where they feel that they fit in and where they feel like they're going to thrive. And that was the story for me. And that was the choice I was left with because my parents moved out of state and I knew I wasn't ready to move out of the state. I wanted to be a Californian, darn it. So that was just what my story was. And I feel like there's a lot of different students with that unique story where they have a lot of different costs and stress. And maybe those are the reasons that they went to community college instead of going to a Cal State or UC or a private college, just because cost really is something that will prevent you from completing your education, especially transferring. Like you said, like the cost is just astronomical for a lot of students. Thank
you, Brianna. I will do a little plug for your last session of the day, which is a colleague of ours, Laura Szabo-Kubitz, who is from TICAS, and she's going to be going into much further depth on this item, specifically in financial aid broadly in terms of how you all can educate yourselves and then help educate other students about the financial aid that is available at the universities, and to help you understand that it's different. Yes, it costs more, okay, but there is actually also more aid available to help cover those costs. And that's the kind of information that's not getting to students while they're in the community college. Because if, for example, if you're a Promise student, you're getting your tuition paid for, you're on the Promise grant, if you're assuming that that's all that's going to be available, or that's what comparably is going to be available at the university, then you might be a little worried of like, well, how am I going to pay for everything else? Like you say, like rent, food, transportation, could be childcare, could be a lot of other things that we all have to pay for, aside from just the books and the tuition. So I encourage you to go to that session to learn more about that. And we're actually working with her organization, TICAS, to figure out how to help colleges understand that they need to work with the universities to get this information to the students. So we have another in the chat, having assistance, financial aid counselors. That's yes. So I said that how much have they been able to help you in terms of, this is kind of one of the things we're curious about, is right now it seems like most of the onus is on the community college counselor or community college financial aid office to tell you about the financial aid at another institution. And so that's something I think needs to be worked out. But if you have access to people at your financial aid office, especially a counselor in financial aid, I'm glad to hear that. Unfortunately, not every community college has actual counselors in their financial aid offices. So consider yourself fortunate. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead. See you on mute, please.
Yeah, we do have another answer in the chat from Technic Captions. At home, I have to pay rent. I think a lot of students like myself want to go where they think they would fit in and where they will feel like they are going to thrive.
Yes, sorry, I thought that was someone repeating what Brianna was saying. That's why I didn't repeat that one. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next factor. Let's see if you've got what you'll have to say about that one. School life balance. So community college students lead complex lives. They have a lot going on while they're also trying to go to school. Many of them are working, a lot of them have family obligations. And so trying to juggle all that, time management, all of that is a challenge. And so what we're trying to do is get colleges to realize that they have a role to play in whether they are making it easier for you or harder for you. So we want colleges to recognize that things like scheduling, I can't tell you, I mean, you may be one of these students. I've talked to so many students who talk about how, especially when they're getting towards the end, and how their education at the community college is being prolonged because they can't get the classes that they need. It's only offered on Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I work then. They don't offer it at night. They don't offer it on weekends. They don't offer it online. Again, I know we're in COVID, but this survey was done pre-COVID. But there were not opportunities for students to get those classes. And so again, just trying to get colleges to recognize that you can be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution, in trying to recognize that our students have a lot going on and that we should be trying to make it easier for them to do that. So again, a quote from a student: "I have to take calculus for business. The problem is my college doesn't offer it at night or on weekends. It's a morning class at the main campus. That may work for a millennial, but not for someone who has a full-time job." Okay. So let's do the chat question again. So what kind of strategies have you found, kind of works for you as you're trying to, balance school with life, as you are working towards your bachelor's degree? And again, are there things that you've thought of or things that have actually happened that your college has done, or college working with the university has done to help you achieve that balance?
I don't see any hand raises.
I know we always want to give people, it takes time to type. So I like to give people, yes, meditating and yoga. I need to be better. I think most of us need to be better at that. Thank you for the reminder. It does help that mindfulness and being able to center yourself. And then yoga obviously takes care of both the mind and the body. Thank you. Wonderful. Prioritizing. Yes. Key. Absolutely key. Some things are more important than others. Some things need more time than others. Absolutely. Prioritizing is key. Mental health. You can't balance all of these if you're not taking care of yourself mentally and physically. Very good points. Gonna give it another couple minutes. That's the difference about doing these things in Zoom. You've got to have these pauses. You've got to wait to give people time to type, versus when you're in person, somebody just raises their hand and you call on them and they start talking. So it's a little bit more challenging, but we are all adapting, right? All right, great. Sierra College, day and night classes. So achieving that kind of a balance, to recognizing that some people need to go in the day, some people need to go at night. Perfect. Is anyone in the current environment, with everything being online, or at least most things being online, has that made, when you don't have to be at, on campus Monday, Wednesday, 9 o'clock, are you able to, build into your schedule and go to class when it's convenient for you? Is that working for people?
We do have a hand raise from RAD Region 3.
Okay, great. Please unmute yourself or you can unmute them.
Hey, my name's Angelica. I feel like, yeah, like it's kind of a mixed bag with that answer that question. Like, yeah, it's been a lot easier to like go to class when it's offered, but like the kind of con to that is not every single teacher offers like a lecture, whether it's optional or required.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been really mixed. Like I've found more time to do like stuff that I normally wouldn't have at home, like that I wouldn't have been able to do during like a regular school day. But then there's also like the factor of like not every teacher even offers a lecture, whether it's optional or not.
Great, thank you. So from Ruby, it helped me attend clubs. Ah, okay. Hadn't thought about how the extracurriculars are, we've been very focused on the classroom, right? And that's understandable. That's why you're, in school primarily, but not solely. So you've been able to attend clubs virtually. So that's great. I think we need to promote that a little bit more among students, for sure.
We do have another response from Brianna Ross. I can't raise my hand, but I have a response. I will. Okay.
Oh, can I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Brianna.
Okay, I think I'm a co-host and that's why I can't raise my hand, but I was just gonna say it's kind of ironic in my situation because I feel like although most of my classes are asynchronous, my one synchronous class like expects a lot, I think. Like now that there's the assumption that we have a lot of free time, we're not going anywhere, obviously, because COVID, there's an expectation that like we can meet like different times and like just sort of things like I know my professor offers a lot of like extra credit to attend events, but then some events that we have to attend are like mandatory or highly recommended, they say. And so finding the balance in that has been really difficult because the instructors expect that you have a lot more time. But I mean, for me, I'm a part of a bunch of different things on campus and obviously the SSCCC. And so it's almost like those things take a little bit more time and more dedication just because there's so many different things to work on. So that's how balancing has kind of worked for a lot of us, I think.
Well, here's a question for everyone. Who's actually busier now? Now that everything's online? Me. I'm busier now because there's everything moved to online, and so there's so many more choices that you might get involved with that you wouldn't have before, like clubs. And it's just like it's all coming at you. It's like you know all of these opportunities, and you're just like, before when they were on campus, you would probably just go, I can't go, right? I'm busy or whatever it is. But now that it's online, you're kind of like, well, I don't really have an excuse anymore. So that's really great. I want to go back to, thank you all. Yes, okay, it's not just me. I'm all right. That's comforting. I appreciate that. I want to go back to what Roy was saying about online classes. And this is what's going to be interesting, right? When we go back, whatever that is, none of us know when, but let's all just assume that we will go back to something that looks like pre-COVID time, and we're all on campus and all that happens. It's going to be interesting to see how much stays online, right? Because of just what we're talking about how much more inclusive it can be when you don't have to be in that place at that time. So I think this is a good thing for colleges to really be paying attention to. Again, we got to deal with the situation that we're in right now, but we need to be looking forward, and we need to be taking in those lessons of what is working and not working, and what are those consequences and implications, and again, those things that we may want to continue online because of the benefit and being able to include more people. I also want to recognize what Jen is saying in terms of, working and not working, right? And it's been in line with what you're seeing for a lot of students. It's you're focusing on your job, you're focusing on social media, but it's all there. It's all online. Zoom fatigue is real. Yes, Yes, we all can raise our hands on that one. And it is exhausting. You're going from back to back to back to back to meetings. We're all, on the same place. Like I said, we're actually busier. It's somebody's going to do a study, probably not us, but someone's going to do a study about this whole phenomenon once it's over. Again, not knowing what that means. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate everyone getting engaged there. Let's move on to the next factor. Okay, so pathway navigation. This is that idea that students, you obviously need information about transfer. You need to get accurate information, and that information needs to be timely. You need to get it when you need it, not after it doesn't do you any good. And so, and that information, what you need changes over time. What you need in your first semester in terms of information is different than what you might need in your third semester. But colleges need to take on that responsibility of making sure that they are getting you the information, that they're providing you with that information, again, that is both accurate, but when you need it, when it's appropriate, when it's the most helpful. So the quote here from our student is, a lot of people are left confused in what they're doing. There's all kinds of figuring out on their own, kind of teetering on the edge of, am I doing this right? Am I taking the right classes? I think the ones who have it real lucky are the ones that consistently go and ask a bunch of questions and don't stop until they get answers. And that kind of isn't really good. And I have to agree with this student. The onus should not be solely on the student to have to go and be that pest, right? To be aggressive, to be in, constantly going and checking and triangulating the data, right? Going and saying, well, let me ask this counselor, and let me ask this counselor, and let me ask this counselor. And what you'd hope for is to get answers the same from all of them, but that's not always the case. And so when you get different answers, what are you supposed to do with that? How are you supposed to know who's right and who's wrong? And so we need to, again, as colleges, figure out ways to get students the information they need, making sure that it is correct, that it is up to date, and that the students are getting the information when they need it. Again, not too late and also not too early. Like I said, we don't need to inundate you with everything about transfer in your first semester. We need to parse that out and figure out what is the most important thing for a student to know about transfer in his or her first semester versus second semester, third semester, etc. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So again, wanting to hear from you, how have you made sure that you're getting the information you need when you need it and that it's accurate? And what do you think colleges could be doing, to help in this regard, to make sure that students are getting this information? I'll go back, Kenneth added to, I think, to the last question about school-life balance. Most students just go to school and then they go home. That was me. I get that. Yeah, they're working, they're committed to their jobs, and that's the kind of that normal student life. Thank you, Kenneth. All right, Brianna talks to multiple people. It's kind of what you have to do, right? You have to check your sources. You've got to make sure, yes. Is that pretty much what everyone else is doing? They're checking multiple sources, and multiple sources can obviously be people talking to different counselors, but it's also checking websites, right? If you're not familiar with Assist, assist.org, would highly recommend using that if you're not using that already. Talking to your professors, talking to counselors, and doing your research. Excellent, excellent, Jen. That's, unfortunately, that is the way it is right now. And you do have to be your own advocate in this case, but what we want to do is work with colleges to get them to understand the important role they need to be playing and so that you don't have to always do that. Attending workshops, absolutely. Talking to a counselor once a semester, beautiful, perfect, great. So I'm not terribly surprised that this group is a group that is going to be, assertive in making sure that they're getting the information that they need. So it's just what can you do to help your fellow students who may not be as engaged or as involved as you, and they don't necessarily know where to go or who to talk to or what resources are available. So I think that's an important point, is to share your knowledge and to make sure that you are helping others who, you know, are not as in tuned and not as informed. Give it another minute or so for someone who may still be typing. This is great. You guys are great. I really appreciate you getting engaged and sharing your experiences and your thoughts with us. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Oh, nope. Agreed. Roy, the right questions to ask. Thank you, Roy. That is absolutely correct. And this is what we, you know, trying to tell faculty and staff, is they're making assumptions that you as the student know what to even ask. You know, so we need to put more of the onus on us. We need to provide you with materials, you know, resources, so that you can be prepared, like when you're going to go in and see a counselor. So you do know the right questions to ask. And we also need to provide a lot more about career exploration, you know, because I said you're coming in, and no matter how old you are, it's not an age thing. You're still trying to figure out what you are pursuing, in both in terms of your educational and career goals. So as much as we can do to help you in that exploration, and also key to this is exposure. You know, I don't know if you might know someone, you know, there's a lot of students who come into community college and they want to be a nurse. That's, you know, that's what they want. They've you know a nurse, or they've seen statistics about how much nurses can make, and they're, you know, kind of doing the math. But they start on this path, they start taking all the prerequisites, you know, they're on their way, and then they, you know, either are almost in nursing school or they're getting ready to apply, and they learned something like, oh, I don't know, I don't like blood. Well, that's kind of a problem if you want to be a nurse. Other people figure out at some point later in their journey that they don't like people. Also a problem if you want to be a nurse. So it's things like that that really we should be helping students figure those things out early in their journey, versus after they've taken 2 years of prerequisites and now don't know what to do. All right, I saw a hand raised, but I want to make sure I'm getting through what's in the chat. Yes, different answers, multiple sources. That's what we need. That's what colleges need to work on, is how to corroborate, right? So that you don't have to do it and you don't get confused by all of the different answers and different information. Yeah, no apologies for slow typing. Trust me, no apologies necessary. Guided Pathways Project. Yes, actually we are. We are working with different colleges, and one of the things we're actually working with them on is this idea of onboarding. And that onboarding is not just orientation. Orientation is part of that, but to onboard someone, you are really trying to set them up for long-term success. Not just get them to the first day of class or get them registered in their classes, not even just to get them through their first semester, but are you giving them a foundation that will serve them throughout their time at the college? That's really what we want colleges to be emphasizing. And Guided Pathways, obviously a big part of that is getting on your path as early as possible so that you know what your path is and you are working towards that. Without, you know, it's not about forcing students to, you know, pick a major. It's helping them pick a major, pick a career, pick an educational goal. So yes, I'm glad to hear that that you found that Guided Pathways is working. But we do have more work to do. There's lots more work to do. It does require, if you really look at it, it requires a lot of shifting on college campuses of how they do things. So it could be a little bit of a process. Another thing I've heard from students responding to Jeff is a lot of students, one of the data points, right, one of the resources is the actual university that they're transferring to, or the universities that they're interested in transferring to, and going to them as a source, because they're the ones who are going to take your units or not, right? They're the ones who are going to accept you. So I've talked to a lot of students who kind of go right to the university, but it can be hard to figure out who at the university do you talk to. So if they're coming on your campus, that's great. If you can find a counselor at your college to help maybe make that connection for you, but that is another good source to make sure that you're looking at their websites and seeing if you can even speak to someone at that university to help you figure that out. Counselors can, they're so helpful if you're able to kind of establish that relationship. They get to know you, they get to know your goals, and they can help you. Even it's not so much to do the research for you, but they can point you in the right directions. Yes, not all colleges, Stanford, yeah. They don't all send reps, you're right. But I said, if you can get someone on the community college to help you make those connections to, and that can be a counselor, it can also be an instructor. If you see it, find an instructor who maybe went to that college or that university, you got to take advantage of all the different connections you can possibly make to do that. Reversed engineered from the university, exactly. The end goal in mind, right? Plan for it, go to that end goal and figure out how to get there. Perfect. Yes, you guys are great. Yay. Okay, I do have one more factor to get to, and then I want to quickly share with you that preview. So the last factor is the support network. It's the people in your lives. And so when we talk to students, we did see a difference in terms of how they were approaching transfer based on whether they kind of had a support network or didn't have a support network. And that support network is, it's not just one role, it's not just one type of person, it's not just one type of support. It is a multitude. It is that truly a network of people fulfilling different roles. And so some people in that network might be cheerleaders, right? We all need cheerleaders. We all need people to say, you can do it. You can do it. But maybe they aren't in a position to actually give you information. Well, that's a role someone else in your network can play, to make those connections we were just talking about, right? To give you that information, to introduce you to people. It's to inspire you, right? To role model for you, to kick you in the you-know-what when you need it, right? To people that hold you accountable. All of those people make up that support network. And again, what we heard from students is that those who had that were much more confident about transfer and believing that they were going to be able to do it. And the ones who didn't really have that network were much less confident about whether they were ever going to transfer and whether they could make it happen. So a quote from our student, a lot of times it feels like people are fighting their own battles at my college. It just doesn't really feel like everyone's connected, like they're fighting together. A lot of times it feels like a lot of people are on their personal journeys by themselves. So it's lonely. And a lot of times it's very hard to do things, especially transfer, especially education, especially getting that bachelor's degree. It's a hard thing to do by yourself. We all of us need support in different ways, different times, different people, but we all need support. So let's go to our question. So how have you built your support network? You know, who's in it? How are they helping you? But specifically, how do you build that? Because I don't know if most of us thought, well, I'm going to build a support network today. It's probably a little bit more organic, but you also have to be proactive about it too, to where it's like, well, I'm going to talk to that teacher. I'm going to connect with this counselor. I'm going to stick with these friends, right? They all seem to have similar goals. They're similar drive. I'm going to go talk to my neighbor who went to college. How are you building, or have you built your support network? And then again, what can colleges do to help students? I know I've talked to a lot of students who really appreciated things like an in-person orientation. They appreciated first-year experience programs, learning communities, because it kind of, I don't want to use the word force, but it placed them with other students and in a place where they could get to know each other and then build those bonds, or different activities that brought you together with faculty, whether it's instructors or counselors or classified professionals. what could the colleges be doing to help you? Because again, everybody's not, the gregarious, extrovert who could just go out and meet people and do that. So what can colleges do to help students start to build their support networks? Again, raise your hand. Happy to hear your voices. I know somebody has a support network. Somebody on this call has a support network. Just waiting patiently. Student government. Yes, absolutely. Anyone, any other avenues? Veterans Resource Center. Oh, talk to veterans and how important those VRCs are to them, and helping them connect with people who understand, people who've been through what they've been through. Great. Student Run Resource Center. Family Resource Center. Excellent. I think that's a group that we need to start actually paying more attention to, is student parents. Because I know I saw something recently, I hadn't really realized in some cases how unwelcoming it can be on some campuses for student parents when you see things that say no children. It's like, okay, yeah, that's all right. I'm not welcome here. Therapy, yes, very good. Family, clubs, friends, excellent. Special programs, networking opportunities. I think that's something, again, that colleges could do, especially if you're at a college with guided pathways and your college has pathways or something, they all call them different things. Some call them schools, some call them academies, all of those things. But what the colleges could do is, when you've got a group of students who are in a particular pathway, get them together, help them meet each other. So it's not just in the classes that you're taking, together, but get them together and then connect them with people in the careers that are linked to that pathway. Bring in guest lecturers, figure out if the internship opportunities, because a lot of success, to be quite honest with you all, is who you know. If you haven't figured that out yet, I've spoiled it for you. But how do you get to know people, right? So colleges could, really start to make being in that pathway meaningful by bringing the students together and also exposing them to the different careers and transfer institutions that line up, getting them to know people from, well, I went to this university, I studied this. All of those things could be something that colleges could do. Latinx Engagement Center, great. Alumni group, broken down by careers. Yes, bring back alumni, bring back successful transfer students so they can tell you the pitfalls to avoid, the springboards, the things that really help you. Excellent, excellent. Okay. So I'm gonna close this out, and I wanna give you, let's go to the next slide. So one of the things we looked at when we looked at the survey data was we wanted to disaggregate it by race, ethnicity, gender, age, location or region, whether the students were still enrolled or if they had exited and had basically stopped attending. And so we found 6 student groups where their experiences differed from other students. So let's go to the next slide. So what we've done, and this will be released probably next week, and we can make sure that you can get a link to that. But it's providing just a kind of a quick snapshot for these 6 student groups: females, older students, Hispanic and Latino, Latinx students, African American, Black students, students in the Central Valley of the state, and then students who had exited. And so we're going to give you just a quick preview of the what's in the report for African American students, but it's a very similar setup for all 6 groups. And then we may be having some more presentations about this particular thing, but we wanted to give you that sneak peek. So let's go to the next slide. So here's some of the differences when we compare African American Black students to white students. So related to school life balance, they were more likely to talk about having concerns about transportation once they get to the university, and thinking that that's going to be a real challenge for them after they transfer. And so that's factoring into their decisions more than it is for white students. And then related to pathway navigation, they were also more likely than white students to indicate that they were using transfer related resources and that they found those resources helpful. So this is one where it's like, well, if you provide the help, if you provide the resources, they will use them and find them helpful. So we need to make sure that we're connecting African American Black students to those resources in a very proactive, consistent way. And then finally, African American Black students were more likely to share that they did not grow up with people who went to college. So in most cases, they're first generation. So what can we do to create those opportunities to connect them with people who look like them and have gone to the university? So let's go to the next slide. So again, what we do in this guide is share, here are where, some of those differences are for that particular group. And then we offer some possible strategies. So again, getting students information about transportation for at least the local universities. What are the options there? Are there bus routes that go from, kind of some certain parts of town to the university? What are those available? But get that information to students while they're still at community college. And I think that's really what a lot of this is about, is giving students more information while they're still at the college, the community college, so they're not trying to figure all that out after transfer, or not letting it stop them from transferring. So again, what I said about pushing the information to students, we can't just put it on the website and say, well, it's there. They should be able to find it. I mean, some of you may have some thoughts about navigating your own college's websites and how they sometimes can be challenging to find the information that you need when you need it. So we need to be much more proactive and push the information out, because again, they're likely to use it if they can gain access to it. There's obviously programs that serve African American Black students like Umoja, but there's also programs like TRIO and EOPS. They all support transfer. And if students are eligible for those programs, we need to make sure that they are being connected with those. The other thing we need to do is, not every student can be in a special program, right? Or wants to be in a special program. But what is it about those special programs where there are elements of that program that we could take out of that program and then scale it to make sure that it's reaching the broader African American Black student population on campuses? And then finally, the last thing I had mentioned on the previous slide is connecting them to alumni. Showing, people need to see people that look like them to understand what's possible, right? So making sure that they're connecting. So again, that was just a preview of what's in the guide that should be coming out next week. And again, these are just sample strategies. There's lots more that can be done, and we do the same for all 6 of the groups that were on that previous slide. So I think, oh, you're surprised that veterans aren't the last group. A lot of older adults, yes. Parents, yes. Different learning environment. Did we have veteran information, Alyssa? Was that okay? Unfortunately, that was why they were not included, because we did not have access to students' veteran status. But that's an excellent point, and I think you're probably right. They may have come out in this group. The group would have expanded to 7 if we had been able to access students' veteran status. So thank you for that, and it's something we'll continue to work on to make sure that we are in our research going forward. We appreciate that. All right. I know I've been very, very fortunate to have done a number of focus groups with veterans specifically, and I learned so much listening to them, and gained a much better understanding. And I really wish that more people had that opportunity to learn about the veteran experience. And we've also been doing some research with Irvine Valley College, specifically focusing on veterans. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Alyssa, very quickly, and then you can take over from here.
Thanks, Darla. Yes. So we have done some research on the experiences of veteran students in partnership with Irvine Valley College. And in fact, there was a report that we worked on a couple of years ago, surveying veteran students across the state to gather their specific experiences of at their local community colleges. And so we are happy to share we would be happy to share the link in the chat box if you are interested in taking a look at that. And then as just sharing some work that we are still doing with Irvine Valley College, we're also going to be in this upcoming year focusing in around what that transition looks like for veteran student populations, as well as digging deep into some of the mental health challenges and other challenges navigating the community college experience. The other thing I'll note, CLIMOS, is that the findings here and the focal student populations were focused on those demographics where there were large enough sample sizes for which we can draw differences from. And so because we only looked at 800, we only received about 800 student surveys, it would have been, I would say, relatively difficult to try to dig deeper into other populations like veterans, like DSPS, etc. So while we would have loved to have been able to get a sample size large enough to be able to kind of highlight what those unique experiences were, this research is at least a starting place in terms of highlighting that different students, to your point, are going to have different needs, and that we need to make sure we're not designing a transfer experience that is a one-size-fits-all. So thank you for making that note and emphasizing that point in terms of different students and their experiences are going to be impacting their transfer experience in different ways. And so to kind of wrap up what we learned from looking at the transfer profile of students across the state, as well as talking to students across the state, what was really important in all of this was that we really need to be redesigning institutional infrastructures and supports that can be in alignment with the Guided Pathways movement and equity reform efforts. That, as many of you noted through the chat box and in the conversations as we were thinking about these factors, campuses really need to rethink how it can proactively reach out to students at every step of their transfer journey, all the way through the gate to the university. That students can't be the ones trying to triangulate, make sense, reach out to individuals to get the information they need to support their transfer success, that we really need to be more proactive about what those requirements are and communicating it in a timely and proactive way. It's also going to require that there is a culture where every single person on campus across all of the levels and function are actively committed to supporting students' transfer success. So as many of you noted, counselors are instrumental in that effort, but faculty also have a role and have served a role in supporting students, as well as your peers at your local institution. And finally, this research really emphasizes the need for us to refocus the community college role, taking on the long view in preparing students for bachelor's degree attainment and furthering their ability for economic mobility, and that it is not just about transfer. You all are transferring as a means to the goal of receiving and earning a bachelor's degree so that you can advance and climb that social and economic mobility. So with that, we would love to open up for discussion around how you all can see using this information that we've shared with you all today based on the research to support transfer students at your college. So please feel free to use the chat box to type and or raise your hand in the participant list to speak. We would love to hear from you all in terms of how you see using this information to support some of your local advocacy efforts. So I'm sharing to bring it to participatory governance meetings. Yes, we have a brief that we can also share, highlighting some of the findings from what we just previewed here, as well as an upcoming brief highlighting some of those focal student population experiences. It's a great first step in terms of connecting this information to work that you all are doing locally. Any others? How do you see using this information to support your local student groups and even for yourself? We'll give it a few seconds for people to type and or maybe formulate their thoughts to speak. It looks like Roy has raised his hand.
Hey, everybody. I figured I'd just stop typing and chime right in. So great presentation. Thank you for all the information. I think one of the things we could do is, I like the idea of just educating our ASG board, because when I came to I'm third semester returning student, I didn't know anything about ASG or what it could do for me or anything like this. But educating our ASG as a board and then giving the students that are new the knowledge that ASG is there and what they do, I think can be very helpful in regards to at least pointing the newer students in the right direction, or any of the students that come to the ASG in the right direction. Utilizing clubs and things like this, I think it's all great as well. And the counseling side is obviously quite good. But the more interaction the ASG can have, the more participation we can have as well. And I think that's really important, especially with what we're doing and in these times.
Great point. And I mean, it is also another nice way of helping to connect new students to others to peers on campus, to help them start building that support network that we're finding many of our students in the study kind of pointing out and calling out in terms of what was really helpful in building their capacity for transfer. It's a great point. Any others?
Well, I want to point out what Brianna said in the chat about how it's making her think about where she stands in relationship to the gate. And I think that's fantastic. And that's what we would hope that students, because again, this is your education and we want to make sure that you are empowered, to facilitate your education. So I think, and I don't want to give away the next slide, but that may be something we're going to be working with you on. So just preview.
Thanks, Darla. Okay.
There's another hand raised.
Oh, yes, Jeff.
Hi, thank you for holding this presentation. It's been really informative. I think the one thing that I'm taking away is that clubs play a role in people transferring. So maybe I think me personally, like I'm involved in a couple clubs, and I didn't know that I was like making that kind of impact with other members in the clubs. So I think maybe focusing on that for me personally is what I'm going to take away from this.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Yes, I mean, the peer connection and engagement is so important in helping to sort of fulfill the students' experience at the institution. Okay, so now we're going to be sharing some of the resources and next steps related to the work that we've been focused in on around transfer. So looking ahead, as mentioned, we're moving from what we call data to action. So we'll be working with your statewide student senate to co-create a resource specifically designed for students around some of these findings that we've shared with you all. The other effort that is taking place is in addition to engaging and working with the Student Senate, we are also going to be engaging and working with other statewide leadership groups, such as Academic Senate, as well as others, to co-design resources and guides, also designed specifically to highlight their role in and how they can specifically help support transfer success. Not noted here is we're also getting ready to publish our new brief that is going to be highlighting those 6 focal groups, one of which Dr. Cooper shared with you all earlier, and that will be published at the end of this month. And then finally, for more information on the study itself, here are our contact information in case you want to email us and follow up. There is also a link to the project webpage here, and then a link to the brief for the study is also included here. And we will be making available a copy of this PowerPoint presentation after this event. So that is the end of our presentation, and we've got about 4 minutes left. So we wanted to check in with everyone to see if there were any questions. Okay, so it looks like and sounds like there are none.
I just want to point out that Julie put in the chat that both the brief and the slides are already in the app.
Okay, so if there aren't any questions, thank you all so much for being here with us today. And oh, how soon, so there's a question, how soon will Student Senate be able to do something about this issue? So Ruby, would you mind unmuting and perhaps expanding on your question?
Yeah, I was just asking, like, you know, how you said that Student Senate will create like some program or something, some resource to guide students to be able to go past the gate, or at least be able to be really close to the gate, so it's actually an option. I was just wondering, like, how soon will they be able to create something to help students get through the gate, like something, you know, some resource.
So we're actually just in the early stages of working with the Student Senate. So I might defer to our Student Senate reps in terms of what they think that trajectory looks like in terms of being able to put together a resource.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious because I think this is a great idea. Thank you for the information. I love the presentation. It was just really nice to look at, and I'm glad that the SSCCC is doing something to try to relieve the problems that some of these students have. You know, as they have like different daily lives every day. You know, like everybody has a different problem. And I agree with all the points, you know, like the little comments that that you guys quoted of some of the students. So
Yeah, we're hoping this year. So we're still in the early stages of conversation about what might be helpful, but at a minimum, it will be trying to sort of repackage some of this information in a way that will resonate and speak to students. So thank you, Ruby, for that question. Okay. So thank you again so much for joining us today, and thank you, Student Senate, for the invitation to come and share some of these findings here at this event.
We do have a hand raised from
Oh,
Roy.
okay, thank you. Roy? Oh. It looks like the hand was unraised. Oh,
How
can't
about now?
unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Gotcha. I was just curious what you guys envision for this future. Do you envision all of the community colleges working together as a team under one kind of unified type of plan, or we work through you guys, or what's the vision?
Darla, did you want to maybe?
I guess it depends on which part you're talking about. Obviously, every college is different in terms of how they're going to approach in supporting transfer, but we are trying to come at it from every possible angle. So we want to give colleges information so that they can take it and adapt it and implement it as they see fit, but we also want to be working at a state level to look at things like policy. You know, are there policies that are getting in the way of students' ability to transfer? So again, it's the vision is to go wherever is needed for us to go, to get as many people and entities involved in understanding that transfer is that means to an end, right? That why people are going to school, and specifically that colleges cannot think of it as the end. It's like, well, I got them transferred. That's all I have to worry about. No, we need to be thinking about the students and the students' goal, and that transfer plays a role in that. And that's why those relationships between the colleges and the universities are key. And we're going to be pushing hard on again, establishing those relationships, both at the local level, between, colleges and their local universities, but also at the state level between the systems, and looking at those things that could be hindering, again, those policies and somewhat practices that could be hindering students' ability to transfer. So I think that's how I would describe the vision is everything's on the table, everything and everyone. I hope that answers your question.
And that is a great way to end this session. I want to thank Darla Cooper and Alyssa Nguyen for this presentation. We appreciate your time, and we want to thank the audience for engaging in the conversation verbally and through the chat. And this will be posted on the YouTube channel. So watch for it later and refer it to your friends so they can actually listen and hear the presentation as well and become part of it. So thank you too. We value you and your time and the research you've done on behalf of students in California community colleges and beyond.
Thank you,
Thank
Julie.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good